Welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live programs. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer Savage, and I will be your host for today's show. We're excited to be presenting our 4th episode of Jack Price is Right. And today, we will be exploring patterns as it relates to our lives or experiences anywhere from the lens of musician, artist, manager, performer, and all the way down to the eye level of the crude and unfiltered human being. Where do we find them? There is no one-size-fits-all answer, and this could leave you with more questions than simple answers, but it's more real that way, and that's what we're here for. Welcome! Great to have you join us, and welcome to Jack Price is Right. And just to show you what we're about, we've got a little clip here just to preview and recap our last installment, which was on falsehoods. Take a look. Exploring falsehoods.
Okay. Everything is viewpoint. Everything is from a point of view. Okay.
Yeah.
How can you tell what's true or false? Okay, so you have to be an expert at everything to know if everyone's telling the truth. Okay. Hey, pat yourself on the back. Hey, that was good. If you're not having breakthroughs, you're a dead person. Okay. I'm in the shower, shampooing my hair, and I go, oh, breakthrough. Okay. So everybody dies, but not everyone lives. Remember that? In fact, I've come up with a new slogan. All life is catch-22. All life. Okay. He goes, yes, I'm this. And they, okay. I'm in the middle. You know what I mean? I'm not a fatalist.
All right.
I just go, okay. The closer you get to your destination, the destination changes.
So you're trying
what's
to
the big
relate
deal?
the passage of time to what a thing is in the present and how
That's
the
right.
passage of time changes that state.
You got it. Remember that. I hope that's being videotaped. It's because the truth eludes us. It's an illusion. Okay. Mistakes and mishaps make for interesting fodder. Okay. Fake it till you make it. That's another way of doing it. We can't
Tell
get
us what
to
you
it all.
really think.
A mistake is a falsehood, but sometimes you win, but most of the time you lose. But you sure have a hell of a ride all the time. Usually, with their eyes, and then
And he's sniffing.
Okay. That's all I can say about it.
Sure. Okay. All right.
Have you ever noticed when you really like someone, they can make a lot of mistakes and do a lot of bad things, but you still really
You don't
like them?
see it happen.
Isn't that true love? Yeah.
One might say. And that was our last episode on falsehoods. And it seems like, honestly, maybe our topic was the line "okay." Seemed to be the theme of the show. But I just want to reiterate, this is Jack Price is Right. I'm your host, Jennifer Savage, and today I'm excited to be joined live with my co-host and celebrated partner in crime, Tigran Atamian, otherwise known as Jack Price. And just to give a little introduction, formerly known as Tigran Atamian and now known as Jack Price, he began his career in artist management in response to his own career as an RCA recording artist after winning first prize in the 50th anniversary Naumburg competitions, as well as a crazy pianist who premiered The Right for solo piano. Welcome to the show, Jack Price.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Every time.
It's a bit of a intro.
I just figured out I'm the crude person you're talking about at the end of that spiel.
You did.
Right down to the crude individual whatever. I forgot.
We are 4 episodes in. I'm glad it
there was this
breakthrough. That was a breakthrough for you.
It's a breakthrough. Yeah, I had another breakthrough. I was dating this girl one time and she goes, "Why are you so crude?" She was Belgian or Swiss or something, so she said it that way. "Why are you so crude?" I said, "Well, I can be refined if you want me to." But it's much more entertaining. It's more entertaining to be just me. Okay, so at least I'm entertained.
Well,
speaking of, that fits right into your next topic, right?
Yeah, so let's get right into it and dive into patterns. Let's see what's behind door number 1 on our topic, our very first topic here. Within patterns, within the umbrella of patterns, we have our first subtopic, in behavior. What do you mean when you're talking about in behavior?
Thank you, Captain Kirk. I like that. In case no one figured out, I'm trying to combine 3 different shows here. The Price is Right, Monty Hall and Let's Make a Deal, and Star Trek. So we have it. Where are the doors, though? I don't see any doors.
Very eclectic. Very eclectic.
That's the door sound.
There's the door.
Yeah, I guess it's a work in progress, right? It's
You're right.
It's in development, like a development artist, right?
Right.
But I see. Yeah.
In behavior, patterns in behavior.
It's a huge topic. We have 4 subtopics. That one we could go on for 4 shows. The behavioral patterns are amazing because we never really learned from them. I was thinking today about last week's show or the week before about history repeating itself and our behavioral patterns. For example, routines. I'll give you an example from my life. Every day I get up, I do all this weird stuff. I wash my mask from the CPAP, and then I, brush my teeth and all this. Yeah. Then I go outside and get in the car and I go to Del Taco and get a roller. And then I go to get an iced coffee at McDonald's. Then I wash my car. Then I gas the car up, even though it's filled with gas because I only go 4 miles a day. Okay. So
that's part of your routine. Yeah.
Absolutely. I never sway from that routine.
You never deviate from that?
Never deviate, no. Except when I'm cramped for time, like if I have to leave town or something, then I got to shorten that little escapade.
But the point is,
the point is, why do we have routines, and why are these patterns of behavior, and here questions again? Why are they important, and how do they impact our lives? Okay. All of those questions came to my mind all at once. Yeah. So let's tackle one of them. I do the routine because I like it. As Anna would say, I really like it. Yeah, it's very simple, but I like a lot of things, but I really like this pattern of behavior, And so my sister will say, "Are you kidding? You wash your car every day and you vacuum it every day. You don't even drive it anywhere." And I said, "Yeah, but these particles are in the air, and I've got to get the microbes out," like my aunt used to say. Microbes meaning the microbes. She says, "You need to get the microbes out." she would iron our clothes, and I said, why are you keep ironing my shorts? And she goes, I have to get the microbes out. And I said, microbes, these little microorganisms that are going to eat me alive, right? So anyway, the point is, why do we do these things? I said, I like it. The other answer is the patterns feel good. Okay. But be careful. Patterns feel good, but what if your pattern is getting drunk every night? Yeah, you gotta. There are patterns that are very productive. Okay, like being organized, and you have this little sort of narrow, like a horse's vision. What do they call it? Narrow vision?
Tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision. I always need Savage to tell me the right phrase here. Yeah, I can't seem to come up with any
You're right
words,
about that one.
But you're right about that. I'm always right. Have you noticed? Even when I'm wrong, I'm always right.
Price is Right.
So
name of the show.
and Jack Price plays right, meaning the spring, song. Anyway,
Plays,
so
the right.
Yeah. So why is this important? To me, it's to guard against depression. It's to guard against bad behavior. It's to guard against many things. So once you get into a good routine, hey, don't fix what's not broken. Just do it. Keep doing it. And that's what I do. And I've been doing it for, decades. I mean,
How did you
I haven't
find
been
that, though? How did you come to that?
Good question. Here we go again. Yeah. Well, it happened. It crystallized finally 4 years ago when I moved to California. This is a great one. This is a pattern of behavior that you're not going to believe. I live next to a corner that has everything. I mean, you name it. It's got 3 furniture stores, 5 million restaurants, because on each corner there is a mall or a strip center / mall. They're very beautiful. They're very pleasing to the eye. I drive through them every day just to make me feel good. After all, this is a feel-good society. And that's the other problem. Our patterns of behavior are being dictated by our thoughts, which is, I want to feel good. And we are living, and this is a truth, okay? Going back to the first show, we are living in a feel-good society. Say it again. Sorry, I interrupted.
Tying it back to the first show on truth. Premiere.
You have to say it loud because my voice is too booming. You see, I don't want to.
Gotcha.
Your ideas are so fantastic. I just have to hear them, and then I'll stop talking. Okay.
Right.
So yeah. So this corner of mine, which is right down the, I can walk to everything, but do I walk? No, because my pattern of behavior dictates that I drive because I am lazy and I'm spoiled. So I take my Murano. That's the car I drive. Nissan.
Is that a good pattern?
What, the Murano?
Well,
you mean driving everywhere?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's a footprint, right? Sorry, carbon footprint. So for all of you Greenpeace people, I guess I violate all rules, but nevertheless, I get in my car. And first thing I do is go to I'm Jack in the Box. I'm getting my fast food mixed up. I go to McDonald's and get an iced coffee. That dollar thing with the app. So it's always $1. See, that's my pattern. I really like free stuff. So I better get the cheapest possible gigantic iced coffee I possibly can get, and then go on to the next destination, which is Del Taco for my roller. It's a little burrito. It's a tiny little, and it has everything in it. That's another pattern. I want a very nourishing little compact thing to eat. I don't eat a lot in the morning at all, so I want one thing. That's another pattern of behavior. So we're all about patterns. This show is about what we are. It's seeing the patterns, recognizing them at all times so you can repeat the act. I've said that before. So in other words, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you've got to recognize things. You can't just say, oh yeah, I had a great day, or I had a great performance. I was on tonight. There's no such thing. I'm so sorry. There just is no such
So
thing
you
as
need
an
to
on
step
night.
back, right? You need to step back, evaluate, see what you liked and what you didn't like, and then from what you like, because we like patterns, they're feel good. When they feel good, we figure out what it is that the pattern that we want to be in um, should follow from what we like.
Yeah, and like the Bible says, man is to have joy. So I want to be joyful. I want to be happy, and I'm not a lot of the time, but I try to. And the things that bring me joy are routines, patterns of behavior that I like, that make me feel good, because the society, we're in a feel good society because of there's so much tumult in our society, right? There's so much anger and disagreement and polarization. So we want to feel good as much as we can. Much of the
Yeah.
time, we're working at feeling good. Okay.
Feeling
So
good.
that's why
But then
that
why do you
pattern.
say? But why do you say that we should be careful when it comes
Because
to feeling good?
because when you well, I mean, drugs make some people feel good, alcohol makes some
Right.
people feel good, cutting down people makes some people feel good. I knew a conductor who every time he was in a podium search, they said, I mean, I got this from people that would call me about references, and I would recommend somebody. So let's say I don't know, the Irving Symphony's looking for a conductor. This guy would get into the finals, go to the dinner, and pan all the other candidates. And that's how he got the job. That's how he got the job, by cutting down all the other conductors to make himself look good. Now, that's not a particularly good pattern of behavior, but it is a pattern of behavior. And he
So
was
it feels
consistent.
good, but it's a temporary. And is it a true feel good? What do you mean by feel good, right?
Well, I
Let's
tell
get
you
into
what,
that.
if I was that conductor and I panned everybody and I was superior to all of them, I'd feel pretty good. Yeah, pretty good, you know? But the thing is, if thank you, Larry.
There we go.
Pretty
the
good.
one.
Excellent. You guys are great back there, I got to say. So listen, yeah, like Larry would say, it's pretty good. But if it's not, if you're not superior, then you're panning everyone just for the feeling that you are superior, and you bring it onto the board. And if they're stupid, they're not really into conducting, and they're just rich guys, you know,
They
with
don't know
big
what they're
bank
talking
accounts.
about.
They don't know what
Yeah.
they're listening to. Oh, I mean, he sounds like he really knows what he's talking about, because he just crucified every other candidate. Believe it or not, like in elections, bad advertising, negative advertising works, right? Because people, why? I'll tell you why. Because they're listening. They listen to bad stuff. We covered this in another episode. Nobody talks about the good. You don't hear about little Lassie coming home every day. You hear about Lassie getting in a car accident, being run over, you know, and that's
The bad
really
press
fabulous
is what
news.
sells the papers, right? The bad press.
Yeah. It's
is what
like
people-
on
gets people
YouTube,
going.
the thing that gets the most attention is a dog catching a frisbee. Now, that sounds really stupid, you know, and crude, if you want to say. But that's what grabs people's attention, because our attention span has shrunk. Okay? We used to be able to hear a full Mahler symphony. Now we're lucky if we get through, you know, La Gazza Ladra, which is The Thieving Magpie by whatever, Rossini. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's an overture, and it's an entertaining overture. And I'm not saying Rossini's a bad composer, but it doesn't take a lot of brain power to get through The Thieving Magpie. It's fun, and it's very recognizable and ubiquitous, and blah blah blah.
Well, even
okay,
just
but
one aria or one song is
Yes.
tough for most modern
hence
audiences.
the gala. I'm putting a plug in for. I'm putting a plug in for Price Gala Performances, or Virtual Concert
Yeah.
Halls presents the gala performance, because people cannot sit through one pianist playing 5 Beethoven sonatas in one evening dressed in black. It is, in a word, boring visually, not so audially, but is the audience clued in audially so much that they really know what's going on? Oh, that's a marvelous performance. I much prefer it to Ashkenazi's version of these sonatas, or something like that. Nobody's really thinking that way. because they're going, oh yeah, I just want to be taken out of my mind because I had a really bad day at work. Okay,
So then
that's what
would
they
you
want.
say-
It's entertainment,
Yes, they want to be entertained.
behaviors.
Their interest is so hard to keep. Now, but would you say that patterns as a society, as a whole, our patterns that we follow in this era, is that where we fall short of when it comes to attention span, where we our pattern, everyone's feel good pattern is not to stick around for an entire Schumann sonata, all of the movements, or Schubert sonata or symphony. Is that the feel, like, what are we as a society looking for in these feel good moments and activities?
Good question. I don't think it's all bad. When I criticize and I'm saying, oh, our attention span is this big, it used to be like that, a much wider attention span. We could take in symphonies and long movies. Remember Ben-Hur? It was 3.5 hours long. The chariot race alone was 20 minutes long. I mean, if you really look at it, it gets a little tedious, you know. It's, I mean, you know,
To get through all
watching Charlton Heston take all those whips from Masala and, you know, and all the blood gushing, and then
Yeah.
the guy gets run over by the chariot. Outside of that, it's a lot of horses running around the queue. Okay, so not good. Yeah, that's the Gong Show. If nobody knows that show, they ought to look into YouTube there. And so that's the fifth show we're going to get into.
But you're not
Gong
placing
Show.
judgment. You're not placing a judgment value on if it's
No,
good or bad.
it's not bad. No, I mean, I like gala performances. I like hearing 4 concertos in a row, 4 movements of 4 different works of 4 different composers from 4 different eras of music. Nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, the lack of attention span could be a very positive thing. It's less boring for most of the public. Not a great listener, you know, of classical music or continuing music or serious music, if you want to call it. I mean,
the
I can
general
listen to film
populace.
scores all day. Yeah, the general populace. And by the way, that's basically a centrist, right? In politics, you want to satisfy as many people as possible. So being a centrist is much more exciting
wanna
than
be.
going all the way to the left or all the way to the right. You want to be in the middle somehow without giving up your own beliefs. And it's very difficult. It's not an
Right.
easy tightrope. But the
Yeah.
point is, these patterns of behavior repeat and repeat and repeat. That's why we're talking about behavior. But there are patterns in other things, right?
Yeah, so, well, for now, let's see. Let's move on to the next subtopic and see what's behind door number two. In nature. How do patterns in nature come about? And what do you mean by patterns in nature? And as it relates to our lives?
I mean, you might think this is silly, but you can just look at a leaf, okay? A leaf on a tree or that fell from a tree, which I do sometimes. I like leaves, I don't know. But, and you know, yeah, I'm not too great. I'm not really an outdoors guy. You know, I prefer hotels and things like that, but, and clean towels, you know, I'm not a camper, but I never did camp. My kids didn't like that. But anyway,
You have a great understanding of nature. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at a leaf and I go,
Appreciation.
what a wondrous thing this is. Look at these phenomenal, the veins and these patterns, and they're so symmetrical and they're interesting to look at. There's so many patterns. Like if you see somebody wearing a necktie, I got this from, Professor Nash, you know, the guy that made all these fantastic discoveries about economy and how to make everyone successful. You know, a beautiful mind guy, the Russell Crowe character. You know, fantastic
From the
mind.
movie A Beautiful
And he
Mind.
saw patterns. He would look. He just couldn't stop seeing patterns. He looked at someone's bow tie or necktie, and then all of these things. You know, the director zeroed in on all these patterns that he was seeing with the camera. And special effects. Well, it's not all special effects. You can see patterns in just about everything. I mean, I'm looking now straight ahead at this sort of cupboard area here, and I see all these patterns in the wood. You see, and it can be a teacher. Patterns can teach you things.
Right. What do
And what
we
it's
get out of that? What do we get out of recognizing those patterns in nature?
okay, in
What does it bring
nature,
us?
the patterns in nature make me think about what I'm doing at a particular time. Now I'm going to divert a bit from patterns in nature to patterns in music, or specifically in piano playing. I look at a piece of wood and I see the grain and all these little angles and things. I think angles, those patterns in the leaf, and I said, oh, okay, Atamian angles. Let's do that. Yeah, I mean that's my name, Atamian, right? And so I came up. I'll have to show you like this. We don't have a piano here. These angles of descent into the keyboard, and I figured out that's what's important physically in playing the piano. People talk about technique. Most of the time they're talking about facility. They're not talking about an approach to the instrument. They're talking about facility that God gave them, or was, the higher being or knowledge, they were born with. Facility you're born with. Technique is mostly acquired. Think about it.
So something
That's
intangible,
a pattern.
like a gift, and then versus something that you attain through hard technique, really, practice and actual, like, listed out steps, step by step, rather than something intangible.
Right. It's
that what
very,
you're saying?
very articulate and tangible. I'll give you an example. I came up with this thing called the perfect W. Okay. It's like this. It's like the hands make a W. Yeah. Now, what it is or the perfect triangle. I came up with that. Sometimes the hands should be parallel to each other, like that in a passage. Sometimes they should be out like this, opposite, like a W. Okay. In other words, to really execute a passage, to play straight on, like this.
Yeah.
Your hands never do that. There's always an angle. If you're playing straight on, you're using nothing but fingers, and it's just air. You're playing the air. If you use these angles, you're actually getting your torso and your whole body into the piano, and therefore the sound you're creating is far more voluptuous, thick, and natural than this fingery sound. I mean, when I hear somebody, I can almost tell what they're using by the sound. Right. I don't have to be looking at them. I'd say, oh, that's all fingers. It's two-dimensional. But when I hear someone really with a full-bodied sound, I know they're using the angles. I mean, they're not Atamian angles. Those are mine. I can recognize a pattern in sound that's a physical, visual pattern. If I look at them, I know that I'm right. I've never been wrong. To my
and this
knowledge.
Is sort of relating to our third subtopic here, how patterns, you notice and recognize patterns and use them to your advantage in music.
Right. That's why I switched over to the music part, because it is a pattern in nature, because we're nature, we're human living things. And so these angles of descent that we're physical.
Physical beings. Yeah.
Right.
And we need concrete steps like that we need to notice those patterns in order to create concrete steps of what to do with your body when you're practicing passages or trying to perfect your technique and trying to create the music that you're looking for.
But then there'll be somebody that'll say, oh, well, I just do it naturally. Like George Bollett was not a particularly great teacher, but he was a phenomenal pianist. And lucky for him, he never stopped to analyze anything, because had he done that, that's where you get confused, when you overanalyze, like Yehudi Menuhin did. He was phenomenal in his teens, and then he fell apart later. Okay, because he overanalyzed his playing physically.
This is again with patterns. You have to be careful for not only avoiding the things that seem to feel good, but actually lead you to a worse outcome, but also not overdoing it when you're recognizing patterns. If you just start seeing patterns and upon
everywhere,
patterns and upon patterns, then you're actually getting farther from the truth.
Yeah, in the movie about Nash, he gets very frustrated at times. He's looking at all these equations and he says, I can't see the answer. I can't see it. I can't see it. And then he has a breakthrough, and it's the greatest breakthrough any economist probably ever had, right? I mean, it was real genius, but he was also, like all of us are at times, confused. If you overanalyze, you can become confused. What you have to keep from doing is overanalyzing. Analyze things up to a point so that you know exactly what you're doing at all times. It's not enough to say, oh, I do it naturally. I don't need any of that. I don't think about that stuff. This one crazy pianist told me, oh, I don't think about any of that. I said, really? You should, because that's how you repeat the act. And she goes, what? I said, wouldn't you like to have an on night every night and not just say, oh, it's natural and I get what I get. Some nights are off. Some night. I said, no, there's no such thing as an off night if, this is a huge if, the patterns of behavior are established and you can repeat the act by knowing exactly what you're doing. Every angle, knowing exactly what you're doing, let's say at the keyboard at every moment physically. Musically, it's all natural. You're either extremely musical and passionate and sensitive, or you're not. And there are lots of different gradations of that. Some people are extremely musical, but not particularly passionate. That's not what we're talking about. It's a topic for another day. The physicality of playing the piano, the violin, or the clarinet is all the same. It's angles. That's how I interpret technique that way. It's an acquired thing. And if you really look at it, have you ever noticed when you play, you're not looking at your hands? You're not looking straight at your hands. You're kind of like, looking at the keyboard and a mixture of vision. But I tried looking at my hands, and I miss notes everywhere if I just look at my hands. But you have to miss those notes and look at your hands once in a while to see what they're doing. You can't correct anything if you don't know what the problem is. Yeah. So, okay, the polished performance, you do something different. But when you're analyzing, you have to look at what you're doing.
Gotcha. Well, so moving on here, let's take a quick break.
Oh,
all right,
thank
some
you.
applause.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah, so great.
And the audience is great, yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome, aren't they? So moving on, we'll take a quick break here and check out some clips that we have in store from the archive and right here on Jack Price is Right, and stay tuned. Mozart Concerto. I just want to take a moment here to mention that we are live Fridays with Jack Price is Right, and we've got so much in store, almost 70 topics coming up. We started with truth. We went on to talk about faith, falsehoods, and now we're on patterns. And coming up, our next episode is on fear. Why do we make our decisions on fear? And why do we fear it? And why do we vote out of fear, even? So here's a little preview of the next topic, and you can check us out on our YouTube channel at Virtual Concert Halls. We're also on Twitch, LinkedIn, Alignable, streaming to all major platforms, and you can find out more here on virtualconcerthalls.com right below, as well as priceattractions.com. And of course, we'd love to hear from you, from our audiences. We're always hoping that someone out there, anyone coming across our show might get something out of it. And you can see we've got wonderful feedback, so many different perspectives, and different ways of seeing the hard-hitting topics that we've been talking about. So any feedback, comments, responses are all welcome. But back to what we were saying. Our next final subtopic here is on patterns as it relates to history. How do we recognize patterns in history? And there you go.
Thank you, Captain.
Jack Price is here to tell us what he really thinks about patterns. Yeah.
Well, in terms of history, we've already covered it. We already have said and established that history repeats itself. That in itself is a pattern. And I've also established, at least in my opinion, that the only way to change history is to change your heart. Because if you don't have a change of heart, you're not going to change anything else. Nothing can change until the heart changes. So these right. patterns in history are quite phenomenal, actually. There's so many, as there are in nature and in piano playing, and they're just an infinite,
whether it's in nature or history or music.
Infinite amount of recurrences. Yeah, that's the key word. Does it recur? Well, of course, constantly. In terms of history, you have the obvious things like conquering, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, these people. We mentioned this before. This desire and this thirstiness, or they're parched for power, control, real estate, mind control, all kinds of control. And the idea is to control people. But why is the idea to control people? Well, it's for self-benefit. It helps only those who are trying to control one another. The people who are not interested in controlling people do not have this problem. Okay? So in other words, control, like controlling the piano, and that's a good thing, because if you're out of control at the piano, then you don't know what's coming up around the bend. Okay? So you have to control the piano, but you don't have to control people. If you stop controlling people and concentrate on yourself, then that's something to control. Self-control. Have we heard that before?
Trying to control yourself rather than others around you.
Yeah, that's what every parent talks about. Well, Johnny just doesn't have any self-control, He just eats himself to death, And I mean, okay, eating yourself to death is a problem. We have a problem with obesity in youngsters, and so on. It starts early, where they're allowed to just do whatever they want to do. Have we heard that
because
before?
It feels good?
Well, it feels good. And also, there's this theory that letting the child have lots of yes, 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 yes is better than the child having no, 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 no. The only problem with that is it's too much of a good thing either way. My suggestion is obvious. I'm sure it's most people's, is balance. Okay. So balance in nature, balance in music, balance in everything. And now we have a balance in history, but we don't have a balance in history because history repeats itself.
So would you say then would you say that patterns here can be used as a tool to keep things in check, to keep you from extremities, to keep you in that balance? Can that be a tool?
Sorry, I heard. What was the first thing you said? What is it that?
So what would you say that patterns could be a tool to keep
Yes.
you from
Sorry.
those extremities and keep that balance together, keep you in
Yeah.
check, keep that
Yeah.
balance together?
The patterns can keep you in check. The only problem with patterns is we fall into certain patterns that repeat themselves over and over that are not good for us. Okay. So the idea is to fall into a good pattern. Okay. One
Yeah.
good pattern would be stop trying to conquer the world. That would be a really nice pattern, but it's not happening. I bring this up because it just so happens, I'm sure everybody will be shocked, but my uncle, we used to call him uncle, it was really a very close cousin, was known as the Merchant of Death. He was an arms dealer. He was the most prolific arms dealer the world's ever known. His name was Sarkis Soganalian. He was called the Merchant of Death, or one of the Merchants of Death. He was in my family. His mother was my grandmother's sister. Very bad guy.
Wow.
Okay, so I asked him one time, I said, Uncle Sarkis, why do you sell arms to different countries? And he goes, somebody's got to do it. I mean, that's not a good answer. Okay. So he sells arms to people who kill people or people who kill each other. This is not a pattern of behavior that's good. This is a pattern of behavior that brought him to a level of $15 million in income every month during the height of the Cold War. He was the Cold War king of arms sales. Okay.
Yeah.
And his bosses were some of the highest in hierarchy of government. You would be surprised who was dictating policy to this man. Okay.
Far-reaching.
And that's all part of the industrial war complex and why people go to war. We won't get into this now, but I intend on getting into this topic in great detail. People think, I'll just give you a little caveat there. People think all these poor boys are dying for their country. No, they're not. Death brings wealth. Death brings money. And that's why there's war. And you heard it here on Jack Price is Right. Now, to find out if Jack Price is right, you need to do your homework. Okay. So do it. Okay. Don't just take my word for it. Nobody does. So you should go out. Yes. You should go out and do your own homework and find out if Jack is right. Well, you'll be surprised at how many things are right that we all thought were wrong. Here we go. Falsehoods. True or false? True or false?
Falsehoods. Mm-hmm.
True or false? Is our army dying in vain, or is our army dying for a good cause? True or false? You have to find that out for yourself. The fact is, these patterns in history are not repeating themselves because, in this case, of the industrial war complex, leaders of the world are in cahoots because conflict brings war and war brings money. So that goes to the evil side of people. You may not believe in the devil, but you have to believe in evil forces. And evil forces like one thing and one thing only: conflict. When you have conflict, you can profit from it. When you don't have conflict, like in a movie, I mean, who's going to sit there during a movie where everything's, oh, that guy just won the Pulitzer, and then he goes on to have a perfect life, and he dies a happy man. This is a boring life. There's no way anyone's going to sit through that stuff. Every movie has conflict. What's the conflict, people say? Okay.
The story needs a conflict to be interesting.
Well, it's like resistance. In life, in nature, in physics, we need a resistance to things. Like at the keyboard, I can tell you one thing: I love heavy, stiff actions. Why? Because they resist my temptation to go faster and faster or louder and louder. It's it tempers you. A heavy action controls your actual approach to the keyboard, whereas it's like diarrhea of the keyboard. If you've got a loose action, I mean, what are you going to do with a loose action? Well, lots of guys like Horowitz loved it. Doesn't bode well. I don't know why people like loose actions. I think they're absolutely insane. There must be, okay, wrong. There must be a resistance to what you're doing. you're doing this, the keyboard has to push you back. That's just
So is that
a law of nature.
feeling
Law of
the
nature.
physical sensation of that resistance and that conflict? Is that
It's feel
that's a
good.
pattern that you like and
Yeah, I like it.
feels
It feels
good.
good. Yeah, it goes back to our feel good. I'll tell you what doesn't feel good is walking out on stage to one of those diarrhea actions and you're nervous and then you just go berserk. Yeah, I would rather be cold when I play physically and have a stiff action. Then I warm into the piece. Not that it begins cold. You can't sound cold. You just have to be cold. Okay? So having these hot hands all the time, that was a falsehood I lived with forever. I used to soak my hands in hot water, like scalding hot water before I walked on stage. Wrong. Yeah. Thank you.
So that
That's
was a falsehood
definitely
that
worth
you,
a gong.
you got out of, and then you figured out
Well-
what felt good and what pattern that you would stick to.
Yeah, I mean, it's false for me. I should not say it's false for
For
everybody
yourself,
because
right.
some people like hot hands. I thought it was terribly out of control, like too much limberness. I like to start cold, end up hot. Okay, let's put it that way. This is a pattern of behavior that works for me. Okay? Now,
All right.
does every pattern of behavior work for everybody? No. Everybody's body, this is an important topic here, or axiom. Everybody's mind, body, and soul are different. So how can you have one approach for everybody? On the other hand, there are rules and regulations and some theories that kind of universally work, not for everyone, but a large portion of the population. Well, I would say most pianists would benefit from blank. You see what I'm saying? I'm not going to say what it is because I have a
Right.
lot of things that I think most pianists would benefit from. It's not worth talking about because we're going to have a million different opinions. So there are things that kind of across the board work, but then
Patterns?
there are patterns, but there are differences in individuals. For example, stylistic differentiation in music. We talked about Mozart not sounding like Tchaikovsky and Tchaikovsky not sounding
Stylistic
like
difference.
Brahms. Yeah, there are these differences in people, composers, and that you cannot ignore. So there's not one size fits all, as you mentioned earlier
There
in
is
the
no
show.
one size fits all, right?
There
Answer,
isn't.
no.
That's a truth. I believe that's true. There is no one thing that's going to solve your problems. Like some people think they can come to Jack Price, meaning me, namely. I'm not really Jack Price, but yeah. And I can wave my magic wand over them and they're going to have a bunch of concerts. This is a falsehood. This is not the way real life works. What these things are, coming to Jack Price or going to Ron Wilford, these are things you add on to your already existing arsenal or attack on the music industry. You can't think of one thing that's going to be the end all and the answer to your prayers. Better think that you add it to your arsenal rather than it's the answer to everything. All I got to do is win this. All I've got to do is make sure I'm friends with Isaac Stern, and then my life is fine. All I got to make sure is that I have tons of money and I can buy my career. None of these, rules or whatever. Yeah, thank you. None of these things work. They work in tandem. They don't work isolated, usually. Lots of money does not necessarily equate a big career. Boy, but it really helps. It really helps.
Okay. Well, with that, I think that's all the time that we've got for patterns today. It's
that's too
been
bad.
really interesting to get into here. But yeah, I just want to thank you for being with us, Richie. It's been great having
No
you
problem.
on, and
Had
the
fun.
time is right here, and we gotta go. I just want to take a moment here to thank our partners and sponsors, and so many collaborators and all of their generosity in supporting and making this show happen. All of these orchestras that we're working with and studios and programs that are standing behind us and as we've talked about in this show before, you can't do it alone. You've got to delegate things, and together we can do so much more. And also, I want to shout out to our production team here. Today's broadcast was powered by Christian Pelagi, directing behind the scenes. He's been great, just pushing all the buttons and getting all those reaction clips in there. So couldn't have done it without any of you right there. That's Christian. That's Kiki. And thank you so much. We're really sincerely grateful for everybody, our partners, our team, everyone along with us for the journey. And with that, I think that's all we've got for you today. This has been Jack Price is Right. I'm your host, Jennifer Savage, and I hope you got something out of today's show on patterns. I know I did, and see you next week. Bye-bye.